Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask, Learn, Grow, the show where the Reef team answer questions and share updates and insights from the digital marketing industry. I've got SEO manager Rob Perez with me today, and we're going to be getting into the mechanics of SEO, so crawling, indexing, and of course ranking. So Rob, I guess this is could be quite a complex topic, but I'm sure it's going to be broken down succinctly for people. Do you want to introduce it and tell people what you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that, Scott. So one of the things that people often forget is they focus really on ranking a website, but to rank a website, you firstly need to be able to crawl the website and then index the website to be able to get any rankings at all. So this is something that people tend to kind of just skate across, just because it's not really anything that they need to do on their behalf, but it's good to understand like the mechanics of it, just so you're aware, in case there's times that you might need to build a new site and there's some things that you need to think of before doing that, or building some new pages, or even just kind of redoing the page. These are all kind of important aspects to kind of look at when doing those types of things.
Yeah, so you're quite right. Crawling and indexing isn't something people other than SEOs would normally think about. So what makes crawling so important from an SEO standpoint and to help you achieve the desired outcome of increased search visibility?
Yeah, absolutely. So with crawling, one of the kind of mysteries that happens is that your page just suddenly gets indexed, but it's kind of good to understand how it gets indexed. So what usually happens in this process is Google has something called crawler. Sometimes it's called a spider or a user agent, but it crawls the websites on the internet, and it builds its database of sites. I can probably just share my screen if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
We do have a list of different crawlers here. So here's some documentation over here that allows us to kind of determine which crawler Google has. And then keep in mind, besides Google, there's also other platforms out there that have their own crawlers. But this is a list of Google's crawlers. So we have the API crawler, AdSense crawler, AdsBot, image. So keep in mind that Google has a different bot for its image, news, video. So they're all different. But one important aspect of this is these two bots over here. So we have Google Bot Desktop and we have Google Bot Smartphone. So remember a couple of years ago when the SEO world was kind of getting in an uproar when they were talking about the mobile get 'em or the mobile first indexing.
Yeah, you remember that.
Yeah. This was the reason why, because Google was originally crawling your site using their desktop Googlebot, but then it moved to using Googlebot Smartphone. So the reason why this is quite important, because many businesses have a different site for their mobile version of their site compared to their desktop version of their site. So just imagine you've built your site, and then you have a mobile version of your site, and it's pretty much just like a cut down version of your site where you may have only a quarter of your content on there. And it makes sense to do that, because when somebody's on their mobile, they're not going to have the time, that you're not going to have the screen real estate to be able to put all your content on the mobile version of your website. So it kind of makes sense. But the problem with that is that since Googlebot is now using their smartphone crawler, you'll get judged based upon that version of the site. So, if you're kind of missing any kind of important information on that page, that's only on the mobile version of the page, you will get ranked on that version of it, and you will get kind of your keywords be assigned to that version of your website. So it's important to kind of make sure that you're building your site based upon the mobile version of your site. And it's kind of crazy, like even today, I can speak to a lot of clients and a lot of web developers, and they just use their desktop version to kind of develop the site, and they never ever, like, there's a mobile version of your website there that that gets built with your desktop version, but pretty much all the mock-ups, all the prototypes are all the desktop version. So it's really important to kind of get in the mindset of building a site with the mobile kind of version of your site in mind. And even when I look at analytics through all of the clients that we have, like what I typically see is people are accessing the site more on their smartphone than their desktop. Which is a huge shift from 10 years ago when that was completely reversed. So yeah, all those things they come into play. And one last thing I kind of wanted to add to that as well is page speed. So with page speed, you'll get judged based upon your mobile site version of your page speed, not your desktop version. So making sure that your site is quick with your mobile version is very, very important as well. So
that you used to hear it quite a lot when the crawler first flipped over from desktop to the mobile one, and judging the website based on the mobile version of the site, like you just explained. Everyone was talking about mobile first, but like you say, quite rightly, a lot of people haven't adopted that ethos, or maybe they did at one point and then they've kind of forgot about it because it's not really the hot topic anymore because it was from a bit ago, even though it's still equally, if not more important. So yeah, good call out on that one, Rob. Okay, so we've established why crawling and the ability for Google and search engines to crawl your site is imperative. Is there anything that you can do to instruct Google to crawl your site rather than sort of hang around and wait for the spider or the bot to come in its own time?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So there's a file on your website that allows you to give permission to the crawlers to crawl your site. So it's called the robots.txt file, and I can give you an example quickly on how this kind of looks like over here. So basically, we're in a site over here. If you type in robots.txt, this is a file that the crawler will see, and from this file it will be able to kind of determine where it's allowed to go and what it's allowed to do. So pretty much the first section over here is just saying all user agents follow these commands. So you can be very specific on which kind of crawler you want to access, which type of directories as well. So with this one, you're just pretty much saying all crawlers allow going to go to this certain section of the site, but disallow going to these sections of the site. Besides that, you can also indicate where your sitemap is, which is over here as well. So from here you can actually tell the crawlers where to go and what to do. So there has been situations where I have been in a site migration where some developers have actually forgot to update this. So they pretty much just said all user agents delay crawling of all the site. And that made sense. Yeah. And that kind of makes sense when you actually build in the site, right? You're building a site, you don't want people to go on the site yet because it's still in like production mode. But when you go live, you have to remember, okay, well, I need to switch that because I do want people to go to my site, and I do want Google crawlers to crawl my site. So there's been times when that simple thing of having an allow and a disallow can completely shut down your whole site from being crawled, and just kind of indicates like these kind of little things you always have to keep in the front from most of your mind to be able to make sure that you're getting the most out of your efforts when you're kind of developing your site. So
Great stuff. Thanks, Rob. And talking about crawling, we've gone quite in depth about Googlebot and other bots crawling the website. But the kind of objective of that is so that your site and the pages on your site all get indexed in search, so that they can appear in the search results and drive and attract traffic. So how do you know if your site has been indexed? Is there any ways that people can quickly check that?
Yeah, there's two main ways where you can check. One is I'll just quickly kind of show you what to do. So one is using the this command over here. It's this command where you type in site colon and then you type in the URL of the page. So you can pretty much just do the whole site. So over here I can do site colon the URL of our whole site. And then from here, you'll be able to determine that Google has indexed 282 pages from reefdigital.com.au. So just imagine, you were, building a power page, and you built this page like 5 years ago, and you've updated the page, and then you use this command. You can see that it's indexed, and you can see the date of when it was indexed, but maybe you kind of want it to be indexed a little bit more quicker. So one of the things you can do is that you can go to your Google Search Console, and then you can paste your page into this section over here. And then from here, you can be able to determine that it's indexed, which we've checked just right now. But what you can determine is when it was last crawled. So for this certain page, we had it crawled on August the 6th at 1:39 a.m. But you may want it to be crawled like today, as an example, because you've made edits to it recently, and you want it to be crawled. So you just click on this button over here, and you just click on Request Indexing. To be able to crawl the site. So one important thing that people often forget about crawling is that Google wants to be as efficient as possible. So it only crawls your site how often it kind of needs to crawl your site. So just imagine you have like a local cafe which updates their website once a year. Or just imagine you have a news site which updates their site like 3 times a day. Google will most likely crawl that news site constantly every single day compared to crawling that local cafe. And the one way it determines that it crawls a site to see what differences has happened since that last crawl. And if there has been many differences that happened since that last crawl, it will increase your crawl rate higher and higher. So, if Google crawled your site last week and nothing has changed, and then it crawled your site the next week and nothing has changed, it'll kind of slowly reduce your crawl rate lower and lower because there's no need to crawl your site. But if you're constantly, building content and you're constantly updating your site, there's a need for Google to crawl your site constantly and every day. And then part of that is that you're increasing your scope of your keywords as well because you have more content, but you're also being more aggressive in the search results because Google is crawling your site more often, so you're able to move faster than all your other competitors as well, which is why people say often content is king, because content enables you to have a bigger scope of keywords, but it also makes you it gives your site the opportunity to enter the search results more aggressively and more faster as well. So that's another important part that people forget.
Great stuff. Some excellent advice and topics covered there, Rob. Thanks for today's call. That kind of wraps things up for today. If anyone's got any questions about the crawlability of their own site or any kind of topic, any kind of questions about today's video, please feel free to send them in, and we're always happy to help. If you'd like to see the team answer a burning question or cover a specific topic in a future video, do let us know, and we'll see what we can do. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified when the next video is available. Apart from that, thanks all for watching and enjoy the rest of the day.